TS Eliot, as you know, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the name. He's one of the greatest poets that we've had, and he's an American, but again, he sort of is one person who the English have completely appropriated, and he's part of the English canon very much, and also a Nobel laureate. So Eliot is known for some of his seminal poems. That's what we know him for: Alfred J. Prufrock or Wasteland, and so on. So Murder of the Cathedral is a play that he wrote, which because of his how do I say, because of his oeuvre as a playwright. I mean, that is what, as a poet. The poetry was so incredibly. Hollow Men, Wasteland, Prufrock. Now these poems sort of defined what was happening in the early 20th century. So the poetry of T.S. Eliot is definitive in more senses than one. The play, on the contrary, is lesser known because he was essentially not a playwright. But of course, the play, and it's an allegorical play, again set in history, as all of you have told us. So it's an old historical allegorical play, and quite surprising because Eliot has been a very contemporary commentator. He's been commenting constantly on the contemporary situation of the world. So it's very this particular play does not seem to have been written by him. It's very different from the kind of work that he does. Anyway, first let me run you through what kind of a person was T.S. Eliot, and why do I always do that? Because it is important to know your author. It is important to know your playwright, and then you can link up the playwright, the times. That is very important. See, we started when we started our first play, we were in the 16th century, and now we have come to the 20th century. So we've moved in terms of centuries, we've moved in terms of time, and we've also moved in terms of the content. But like I keep saying, most of the works that comes from the West keeps harkening back to the Greeks, because that was the golden age, so to say. So everything goes back to Aristotle, goes back to the Greeks in so many senses. Anyways, so his name was Thomas Stearns Eliot, and he was born in 88 and lived till 1965, so reasonably contemporary, one can say so. He was a poet, essayist, publisher, playwright, literary critic, editor, and has been considered to be one of 20th century's major poets. And the kind of poetry that he did and the kind of work that he did is called modernist. So he's known as part of the genre of the modernist poets. So he was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and then he moved to England in 1914 at the age of 25, and went on to settle, work, and marry there, and later on became a British citizen, which is why the theatre that you are doing is British drama, and he has been included there. Now, the first poem which shot him to fame was the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock that came in 1915, then The Wasteland in 22, Hollow Men in 25, Ash Wednesday in 30, Four Portraits in 43, and Murder in the Cathedral eventually. He had written 7 plays, and the most famous of those plays was Murder in the Cathedral, that comes to us in 1935. Now, before I go on to talk about Murder in the Cathedral, I will talk a little about these particular poems of his, because there is a very definite linkage. So, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, which we normally call Prufrock, was, the poem deals with the decadence that one sees in the cities, of relationships which are not fruitful. The refrain is where people come and go, and then there's this late night parties and the smoke that hangs from the late night parties and the cocktail glasses clinking. But what is actually happening, what Eliot is critiquing is that in the clinking of the cocktail glasses and the air kisses and the beautiful ladies smoking their cigars and men accompanying them and so on, it's a completely there's nothing authentic, there is nothing solid in this world. It's all a make-believe world, and the air kisses mean nothing. And that same strain is carried forward in hollow men, that people have become hollow. They're like straw, as if people are made of straws, just as you create a straw man. So the humanity from human beings has been completely lost. You must remember that the 20th century was an extremely traumatic century. It was a century of traumas. You had 2 world wars. You had Hitler and the Jewish massacre that happened. So 20th century was a very, very sort of, it hit the poets and the artists very badly, because you couldn't imagine that human beings could sink so low. You could not imagine that a scientist would actually make a nuclear bomb which could be dropped on another country and not just impact the people living there, not just kill them, but kill generations after that. You could not imagine that there would be a man who would say, "I'm superior," and there would be people supporting him, and they would back into the concentration camps and kill them. So it was barbarism beyond one's comprehension. See, by the late 20th century and early 21st century, where we are today, we have internalized barbarism. We don't blink an eye when a lynching happens, or a terrifying rape happens, or killings happen. We won't even probably blink an eyelid if some mad leader were to press the nuclear button, because we've accepted it as part of life, unfortunately. But the 20th century, there was that shock element was still there, that how can human beings become beasts? How is that even possible? So that was there. Anyway, then so that is the strain that he writes, and then I could go on and on about Eliot. He's one of my most favorite poets. I really wish we were doing his poetry rather than his play. Anyway, so he was, I will skip his. So his marriage, Eliot's marriage, was an extremely traumatic marriage, and somehow Anglicanism, and takes on British citizenship, separation and marriage, and then the honors that come his way. We'll skip all that you can read. And okay, now let me move on to the play that we are going to be discussing today, Murder in the Cathedral. So primarily, even the name, the fact that there is a murder which is happening in a cathedral. Cathedral is a church, and yes, this church is particularly important because the Archbishop stays there, and we know that in the line of after the Pope, the next set of important people are the archbishops. So it is an important church where the Archbishop resides. Now, the very title, Murder in the Cathedral. Now, cathedral is a place of worship, as we all know. People go there and they worship the gods. And to have a murder, to have an assassination, it's not just a murder, it's an assassination, it's a planned assassination. To have a planned assassination within the precincts of a church is in itself so heinous. It is in itself something so disgusting. It's the absolute low. But like I said, in today's day and age, we have internalized it. So many cases of murders that seem to be happening in temples, in all kinds of religious places, and we are okay with it. We don't seem to bat an eyelid when it happens. A girl is raped inside a temple. A few days back, I think 2 days back, I was reading, a man had walked into a temple. People thought that he was drunk, so they beat him up inside the temple, then they beat him up outside the temple, and the man died. So, people don't even think before resorting to violence. And it's just so disgusting that on the one hand, it's a place of worship. It is a place where you have gone to worship your God, whoever it might be, whatever your religion might be. But to actually kill within the precincts of an area which is for worship makes it doubly worse, makes it absolutely the most heinous crime ever. So it's a verse drama by TS Eliot, and it was performed for the first time in 1935, and it shows the assassination of Archbishop Thomas Becket in the Canterbury Cathedral during the reign of Henry II in 1170. And Eliot drew heavily on the writing of Edward Grimm, a clerk who was an eyewitness to this event. So Edward Grimm, he was this monk from Cambridge who visited Canterbury Cathedral on Tuesday, 29 December 1170, when Becket was murdered. And he researched and published a book, Vita S. Tomei, in about 1180, which is, wait, I have to admit people. So a little about Edward Grimm. Now, this is this monk, like I was telling you, he's from Cambridge, who visits the Canterbury Cathedral, and then he visited it on 29 December 1170, the day when Thomas Becket was murdered. And then he researched the event, and he went ahead and published a book called Vita S. Tomei, or The Life of Saint Thomas, in about 1180, which is today known chiefly for a short section in which he gives an eyewitness account of the events in the cathedral. And then on the day of the murder, Grimm was with Becket in Canterbury Cathedral and stood by him during his altercation with him. He attempted to protect Becket from their attack, until his own arm being neatly cut off by a stroke aimed at a primate, he fell to the ground, but was able to crawl away to the altar where the Archbishop's other clerks had hidden and escaped with his life. So, this man was attacked, his hand was sliced off, but he managed to crawl and he managed to go and hide behind the pulpit, and he got saved. So, this Vita S. Thomas could not have been completed earlier than 1174, as it contains an account of the penance of Henry II. Another passage seems to show that it was written after 1177, as it would seem that Grimm did not meet Becket until a few days before the latter's death. His information concerning the primate's life must be considered second-hand, apart from the last scenes where he was an eyewitness. So there is this book which was written by Edward Grimm, and it is this book which Eliot uses as as his source material to construct this story and to tell this story. So it is an occurrence that happened. It is the death of an archbishop that happened, and this person, this Edward Grimm, was right there when the bishop had been killed. There is also an account where he writes down how and what had led to the murder of Thomas Becket and eventual canonization of Thomas Becket as it happened. So to come back to the play in question, so some material that the producer asked Eliot to remove or replace during the writing was transformed into the poem Burnt Norton. So when he wrote this this play and he took it to the editors, the editor said that they were not comfortable with certain things that he had written. So Burnt Norton was the first poem in his 4 quartets, and he created while he was working on Murder in the Cathedral. So the poem's title refers to the manor house which Eliot visited with Emily Hale in Cotswolds, and the manor garden served as an important image within the poem. And structurally, so I was constantly going on and on about the poems. I so wish we were doing the poetry, but we are not. But structurally, this poem is based on T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, and many of the passages of the poem relate to those which were excised from Murder in the Cathedral. So Burnt Norton has the passages which were removed from Murder in the Cathedral. It gets added onto it gets reprinted as Burnt Norton, which was one of the poems of the four quartets which Eliot had written. And remember, he was a poet, so his first calling was that of a poet. So even Murder in the Cathedral is created in the form of a verse drama. So that is the way it has been created. Okay. So the plot we have already discussed, but I will still go over it. The plot is, the action occurs between the 2nd and the 29th of December 1170. It chronicles the days which lead up to the martyrdom of Thomas Becket. So so the days are from the 2nd to the 29th. Following his absence of 7 years in France, and then what is the mainstay? See, the mainstay in the play, interestingly, is not the murder. The murder is an act, but the mainstay is the internal struggle which Becket has. Should he agree? Should he not agree? And then, very interestingly, okay, I'll come to that part later. This question of canonization and how in Becket's mind he has this notion that if he is able to hold his ground, he will be killed, and once he is killed, he will be canonized. So I'm sure all of you know that. Okay, no, maybe you all don't know. Canonization, when somebody dies in the how do I say it? In the cause of the religion, and then later there are some. You're supposed to. That person is also supposed to perform some miracles, or some miracles are supposed to happen before a person is canonized. And once you're canonized, the word saint gets added before your name. So just as you have Saint Xavier's, you have Saint Thomas, you have Saint Teresa. Mother Teresa has been canonized now. So post canonization, you have attained sainthood. So that is the next step that happens years after the person has died. So Eliot also hints at that maybe that was there somewhere in his mind that he might be canonized one day. So basically what this play is, it's like, again, your morality play, the play that we started with right from the beginning. You have the devil and the angel and the devil, the war between the angel and the devil, and even now it's an internal war. All the time the wars are internal. Should I succumb? Should I not succumb? So the book is divided into two parts. Part 1 takes place in the Archbishop Thomas Becket's hall on 2nd December 1170, and it begins with a choric singing. I've already explained to you what a chorus is, what kind of performance, what kind of a role does a chorus perform within a play. You have to admit people. Okay. So the chorus is a key part of this drama, with its voice changing and developing during the play. It comes from the Greek chorus, which has been used as one of the theatrical techniques. Okay, so I don't think I taught you guys chorus. We didn't do Oedipus Rex. Okay. So the chorus, again a Greek word, they are a group of people. Sometimes you can have even one person acting as chorus. Sometimes you have an entire group of singers and dancers who act as the chorus. And the chorus basically are present on the stage. Kanan, you said you cannot see them. No, you can see them on the stage. They come on the stage. And they form the link between the audience and the action between the stage. And more often than not, the chorus mirrors, the feelings of, let's say if it is about a kingdom we are talking about. Now you can't have, you don't know what people of that kingdom is feeling. So it is the chorus which will inform by their singing and dancing and by their commentary. They will tell us that the people of this kingdom think this, or they don't want this, or they are supporting the king, or they are against the king. So whatever is the public sentiment, it will get conveyed by the voice of the chorus. And the chorus is present on the stage. They sing and dance on the stage. And today, what Rafiq was saying, whenever you hear the word chorus, you think of a group of people singing. It comes all the way from Greek theatre. So the introduction of the chorus happened as early as 300 BC in the plays of Sophocles. It came as early as that. So in the Indian tradition, you have something like a sutradhar. The sutradhar is the person who is the narrator, who's kind of connecting the theatre with the audience. So you have a sutradhar. The Greek rendition is that of the chorus. So the chorus performs multiple roles, and very important critical roles actually. Okay. So where did I go off? Yeah. So the book is divided into two parts. Part 1 takes place in Archbishop's Hall, and then you have the choric singing, foreshadowing the coming violence. So the chorus also tells us about what is going to happen. So the chorus is in this case warning us that there is going to be some violence that will happen. So the chorus is a key part of this drama, with its voice changing and developing during the play. So this drama basically is taken forward by the inclusion of the chorus, which slowly and steadily is informing the audience about the calamities that are going to befall this particular church. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then, so the chorus, like I told you, is they are telling us they are the link between the audience and the characters and action, as in the Greek drama. So Eliot borrows from the Greek drama this concept of the chorus, and the chorus is very much present on the stage, and the chorus is constantly telling us about what is happening on the stage. Now there are 3 priests who are present, and they reflect on the absence of Becket and the rise of the temporal power. A herald announces Becket's arrival. Becket is immediately reflective about his coming martyrdom, which he embraces and which is understood to be a sign of his own selfishness, his fatal weakness. Just a second. So the tempters arrive, 3 of whom parallel the temptations of Christ. So this is something maybe you all are maybe you all are familiar with. Are you familiar with the temptations that had been given to Christ? So the temptations of Christ, as it is called. It's a biblical narrative. When I say biblical narrative, it is there in the Bible. You see it in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. And after being baptized by John the Baptist, Jesus was tempted by the devil for 40 days and nights in a Judean desert. And during this time, Satan came to Jesus and tried to tempt him. So Jesus, having refused each temptation, Satan departed, and Jesus returned to Galilee to begin his ministry. And during this entire time of spiritual battle, Jesus was fasting. So you remember the 40 days of fast and the constant temptations that are put before Jesus' way, and he's asked to the Satan keeps coming to him, and the Satan keeps tempting him, and Jesus is able to resist this temptation. So here also you have the tempters, 3 of them come, and it is parallel to what we understand as the temptations of Christ. Guys, just give me a minute. I'll just join you in a minute.
I'm still a little stage here. Mistakes.
Welcome back. I'm going to drink some water. Okay. So coming back. So the first tempter offers the prospect of physical safety. So he says, take a friend's advice, leave well alone, all your goods may be cooked and eaten to the bone. Also you see that the dialogue is in the form of a verse. All the dialogues that you have in Murder in the Cathedral are in the form of a verse, that are in form of verses. That's why it's called a verse drama. So the first tempter talks about physical safety. The second tempter offers powers, riches, fame in serving the king. And the third tempter suggests a coalition with the barons and a chance to resist the king. So these are the 3 temptations, but the temptation which attracts Thomas Becket is the 4th temptation, where he is asked to seek the glory of martyrdom. You hold the keys of heaven and hell, power to bind and loose. Bind, Thomas, bind, king and bishop under your heel. King, emperor, bishop, baron, king. So the last one is that of martyrdom, that if you die and you become a martyr, then you will be remembered forever. So there are all kinds of temptations which are put before Thomas. So Becket responds to all the temptations and specifically addresses the immoral suggestions of the 4th tempter. Now is my way clear, now is the meaning plain. Temptation shall not come in this kind again. The last temptation is the greatest treason, to do the right deed for the wrong reason. So he's convinced that what he's doing is the right deed, but to do it thinking that he will become a martyr is definitely wrong. Then the interlude of the play is a sermon which is given by Becket on the Christmas morning of 1170. It's about a Just a second, do I need somebody again? So, it's a sermon given by Beckett on Christmas morning. It's about the strange contradiction that Christmas is a day both of mourning and of rejoicing, which Christians also do for the martyrs. So, this sermon is delivered from his pulpit on Christmas morning, where he talks about Christmas being a day which is both for mourning and for rejoicing, because Christmas is a day also for the martyrs. And then he ends his sermon, and then he also says, it is possible that in a short time you may have yet another martyr. So he already kind of knows that he is going to be killed and there will be yet another martyr. So we see in the sermon something of Beckett's ultimate peace of mind as he elects not to seek sainthood, but to accept his death as an inevitable and as a part of the better whole. So he accepts it and he allows it, allows the death to come to him organically. Now the part 2 of the play, it takes place in the Archbishop's Hall and in the Cathedral. That's on the 29th of December 1170. 4 knights arrived with urgent business from the king. The knights had heard the king speak of his frustration with Becket and had interpreted this as an order to kill Becket. They accuse him of betrayal and he claims to be loyal. He tells them to accuse him in public and they make to attack him, but the priests intervene. The priest insists that he leaves and he protects himself, but he refuses. The knights leave and Becket again says that he's ready to die. The chorus sings that they knew that this conflict was coming, that it had long been in the fabric of their lives, both temporal and spiritual. The chorus again reflects on the coming devastation. Thomas is taken to the cathedral where the knights break in and they kill him. And finally, the chorus is lamenting, the chorus is crying, clean the air, clean the sky, the land is foul, the water is foul, our beasts and ourselves defiled with blood. And finally, at the close of the play, the knights step up, they address the audience, they defend their actions, that the murder was all right and was for the best, it was for the right spirit, sober and justified, so that the church's power would not undermine stability and state power. So they take to the stage and they justify their act, saying that they've done the right thing because they are representing the state and the archbishop was representing religion, and there is sometimes they go hand in hand and sometimes there's a conflict between the two. And in this case, he needed to be killed because he was the creator of this particular conflict and therefore he needed to go. So this is more or less the play. It's a short play in 2 acts with an interlude and it's a simple enough play per se, written in the form of verses. What